I have a question for James. Are you gonna run like a bitch the whole time, or are you gonna stand there and fight me for these people?
Yeah, I'm not the Homer Simpson of MMA like you are, bro. I'm not gonna take a beating, but you will get knocked the fuck out. You take 10 significant strikes per minute. That's 50 shots a round. That you ain't lasting 3 rounds of me taking all that beating like that. You're
So
29 years old and you're 29 years old and you're punch drunk and slurring when you talk, bro. So you're getting knocked out. No, I'm not gonna stand like a retard and fight the.
You're gonna run like a bitch.
But you are gonna get slept. You're gonna get knocked out within 3 rounds for sure.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 40 of Combat Docket Radio. As always, it's Kurt and Ben here to bring you everything going on in the MMA world. What's up this week, Ben?
Not a lot, man. Happy to be here talking about MMA. We got UFC coming back after a little brief hiatus. Fair warning to you, though, as well as I guess the listeners, is that it has been raining all day, which means my dog, she usually sleeps like 13 hours a day, is just full of energy. So if we get interrupted here, that's why.
Yeah, it's been, I guess you could say it's been a long, 2 or 3 weeks without UFC action? But we did have plenty of other things going on in the MMA world. You know, I definitely take a lot of blame for this. A couple weeks ago, I forgot to plug our Combat Docket calendar, which we should be doing every week. It's got everything. From regional events to
definitely
McGregor versus Khabib. Sync the Combat Docket calendar. And yeah, you can see literally everything going on. Not just MMA, any combat sports, really. So, in that 2 weeks, we had PFL 6 happen. We could touch briefly on that. Man, I can't say enough how I'm just impressed every week. They put on a lot of good shows. A lot of known talent, a lot of unknown talent. They have a great production. I love it. Ray Cooper III got a big win, locked up the top seed in the welterweight division.
Yeah, do you remember when PFL announced this tournament plan? I feel like we all kind of rolled our eyes and were like, oh, could be a good idea, but they're probably not going to be able to pull it off. But I feel like they are. They're explaining the point system and the playoff system over and over and over again to where it actually does get you more invested in the fights, about who wins and how they win. We're seeing that the quality of MMA, maybe it's not as good as fucking Jon Jones against Daniel Cormier, but I would consider PFL, right, the number 3 MMA promotion in the world, right, or at least in North America right now. And they're putting on quality fights, and the production is great. I feel like sometimes they have a 4-man booth, which is crazy. But when it's just Boss and Randy Couture, I love it. They're just putting on a quality product, and one that I wasn't super certain they'd be able to pull off.
No, me neither. And we're gonna see if they sustain success. Right now it's great. We love the format, but can they sustain this? Is it gonna be a viable option for big free agents, not just free agents that have been cut from the UFC or Bellator, but guys that are actually playing out their contracts and looking for a new promotion. We're probably we'll see. We still got to get through this whole season, through the playoffs, crown the champions, and then we'll see where it goes from there. But yeah, great shows again. This last week was a great show. We got another one coming up a week from today.
Looking forward to it. And I think the checks have to clear, right? Those $1 million checks, but we haven't talked about it too. There's celebrity investors in PFL, like fucking Kevin Hart. So, it certainly feels like those $1 million checks are going to cash at the end. And then, yeah, if you're a top 5 UFC fighter and you think you could win $1 million in this tournament, why not?
Yeah, man, we'll see. I love it so far, though. This past Friday, we had Bellator 204. A couple things stand out from that. Darrion Caldwell finishing Noad Lahat in the second round at featherweight. Man, Darrion Caldwell, I think it's safe to say Darrion Caldwell is... I think he's one of the best bantamweights in the world, period. The guy is a freak athlete. He's a stud. His wrestling pedigree, but his hands are good. His boxing is good. He's got crazy athleticism. He's super confident. Man, he is an absolute stud. And then, he goes up to 45, beats Noad Lahat, and now he's debating whether he wants to go win the 45-pound title. I can get down for Caldwell versus Pitbull, obviously. They have a little history together.
Yeah, for sure. Them talking shit to each other. And we're fans of Darrion Caldwell on this podcast, and he is huge for 135. So if he can continue to make that, then I agree that he's one of the best 35ers in the world. And I think there's no reason to think that he can't move up to 45 and, be a top 10, top 5 type fighter there. And he's training with like Dominic Cruz every day. And I think Jeremy Stevens over at Alliance, like he has really good guys at those weight classes to train with day in, day out. And yeah, he's a stud. If he ever goes to the UFC, that would be, or some 35ers and 45ers from the UFC jump ship to Bellator, like sign me up for that. Cause I want to see, he might be one of their best current homegrown fighters.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, where would you put him? Like in the top, 135 pound rankings. I mean, honestly, like Darrion Caldwell, Michael McDonald. I mean, the Bellator
Right.
division is not that deep. Dantas, like where would you put him? Like, let's say Darrion Caldwell jump ship right now to the UFC. Where would you put him?
I'm looking at the rankings right now, and number 5 is Jimmy Rivera, who is a phenomenal fighter, but I think I would pick Darrion Caldwell to beat him up.
Yeah, exactly. I favor Darrion Caldwell in that fight.
And then Marlon Moraes, Asunsa, like those are all super competitive fights.
Yeah, man, he is a complete stud. Like I said, Bellator has produced some really, really good homegrown talents, man. But again, like I don't necessarily would rather see, as opposed to Darrion Caldwell jumping ship over to the UFC. I would love for the UFC to get out and grab Bellator to get out and grab some either top free agents or, build their 35 division. I like the competitiveness, especially with divisions like 170. 55 has some really good guys. Yeah, I'd like to see them build a solid division around Darrion Caldwell.
Yeah, and I feel like that was on the discussion for a hot second with John Dodson, but he re-signed with the UFC.
He did. Logan Storley continued his trend upwards, looked like an absolute stud. Luke Thomas brought up a good point this past week or last week, I forget which one, on the MMA Hour. I believe last week when he was talking to Scott Coker. He said, let's say one of these guys drops out of this tournament. Could Logan Storley be another alternate for that Bellator tournament? Man, he looks ready. I mean, I'm not saying he's ready to go out and beat Rory McDonald, but I mean, how far off of like Ed Ruth and Neiman Gracie do you think Logan Storley is?
Can't be that far, especially somebody like Ed Ruth. Like, does he have more fights than Ed Ruth? Maybe.
Yeah, I think he's 9-0 now, 9-0 or 8-0.
I'm looking at his past opponent's record. Matt Secor, I think, was either in the UFC or on the Tough House.
He was, yep.
Joaquin Buckley was 8-1 when he fought him. He's not fighting cans here.
No, AJ Matthews is a solid fighter too.
And yeah, I love what Bellator is doing, just picking up these like wrestling studs. Darrion Caldwell, Logan Storley, Ed Ruth, guys that you just know, just completely based on their background in amateur wrestling, that if they dedicate themselves to MMA, Aaron Pico obviously is another one. You just know that they're necessarily going to pan out to at least like a pretty damn good fighter.
Speaking of Aaron Pico, we didn't get a chance to talk about this yet, but how much of a savage is that guy? Stepping up to fight Leandro Higo. I mean, that is a huge step up for him. In his 4th or 5th MMA fight? Stepping up against the guy that just challenged for the title. Man, if Pico pulls that off, 5 fights into his career, man, I mean, 21, 22 years old?
Yeah, the guy does not give a fuck, man.
No, He is fearless. Absolutely fearless. Ricky Bandejas, and this was a hot topic this past week, knocked out James Gallagher. I've seen 2 sides of the story. A lot of people were happy about it because, honestly, Gallagher acted like a complete prick before that fight. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, he's only 21, 22 years old. Give the kid a break. Where do you fall in that argument?
I think we should, and like, he was talking so much shit and getting into Bandejas' face and all this stuff. Like, I love those kind of theatrics because I don't understand the idea that MMA fighters and MMA fights need to be these like super respectful, clean cut things. Like if James Gallagher, if that's his personality and he's brash and confident and wants to fucking talk shit and taunt like that, then more power to him. I say do it. And then if that as a fan makes me want to see him get knocked out, and then spoiler alert, he fucking got knocked out, like just embrace like that's what makes MMA fun is rooting for and against somebody. And you know, I got no problem with what Gallagher was doing. I got no problem with enjoying seeing him get knocked out. I like it when that kind of stuff happens, when you have a good guy and a bad guy so clearly laid out, and there's nothing wrong with relishing and seeing the bad guy lose.
Yeah, I'm completely with you there. I don't really have too much of a problem with that. I thought he acted like a prick, and I think he got what he deserved. And there's nothing wrong with that. Bandejas looked great, man. And he came in there with, 10-1 record, 11-1 record? Guy's no slouch. And, man, he ate Gallagher alive. He hit him with that fucking crazy, like, Shawn Michaels sweet chin music. Man, he put him out. And Gallagher said all the right things afterwards, honestly. Except, I mean, he kind of backtracked and made a couple of excuses, like saying it was a lucky punch, which it wasn't. But for the most part, he said the right things, and he'll definitely be back. I'm sure better than ever.
Yeah. I mean, whatever. If they rematch, like down the road, there's already a storyline. It made me invested in a fight that I wouldn't have otherwise been all that invested in. I mean, Gallagher is actually both these guys are top tier prospects, but you know, it made me more invested than I should be.
Right. Last thing I got, Taiwan Claxton. That's a guy to keep an eye on. Eric Claxton. He had that crazy flying knee knockout. He just got a big win this past weekend. Keep an eye on him. I've got to train with him a couple times before. The guy's a stud. Really nasty wrestler. You got anything else from Bellator?
That's it, man. Keep watching. They have an event here in a couple weeks, I believe, right? I believe it's Fedor and Chael. Did you see the poster for that? We might talk about this next week. Yeah, it's so if any listener has not seen it, look it up. But Chael Sonnen is dressed up like Apollo Creed from Rocky, and it's a great poster. And
like the text is like the greatest champion ever, blah 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 blah, and Fedor. He is so good. I love Chael, man.
Yeah, it's classic Chael Sonnen. It's great.
And we talked about it before. It'll be interesting to see in the lead up, but we've never seen anyone like really go hard at Fedor, like trash talking. And I fully expect Chael to do that. So it'll be interesting to see that type of interaction.
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. So this week, the UFC returns with a main card from Nebraska. Where is it? In Lincoln, Nebraska. Headlined by James Vick and Justin Gaethje. Some solid fights throughout the card. But we start off with a big one in the welterweight division. James Vick finally getting his long-deserved step up in competition. He's fighting Justin Gaethje, who's coming off 2 straight losses. Where I don't have the rankings up right now. Where are these guys located in the rankings? Are they like 6'7", 6'9", something like that?
Gaethje right now in the UFC rankings is 7, and James Vick is 10.
That's crazy that James Vick is still 10. I mean, he's had since August 2013. He's had like 8 or 9 wins. He had that one loss to Beneil Dariush, but he's a guy that's just slowly under the radar climbed and climbed and climbed. Looks better every fight, but he just has not gotten that big step up in competition until now. I don't know. I've heard a lot of different reactions. I've heard a lot of people think that this is a time to strike on Gaethje. He's on the downslide. I'm not ready to pump the brakes on Gaethje yet. And I'm going to tell you why, and I'm going to kind of talk about why I like this fight for Gaethje. I don't think Gaethje whatsoever is going to change his style in this fight. He can say that as much as he wants. I don't think any of us believe that. That's just the fighter he is. But if you look at the two guys who just fought, Dustin Poirier and Eddie Alvarez, I mean, both of those two dudes are dogs. They fight the same, not exactly the same way, but those are two gritty dudes that are not afraid to get into a brawl. And that is the complete, I would say, opposite of James Vick. And I think honestly that plays into Gaethje's favor. He's gonna try to sink James Vick. That stupid cliche, bring him out to deep water or whatever it is, and sink him. See if he can swim, whatever it is. I don't think James Vick's gonna be able to swim out there. I think Gaethje is gonna eat his legs throughout the fight. I mean, James Vick is obviously gonna land. He's got good reach. He's got pretty good movement. But man, I think Gaethje is going to be all over him, chopping him down with leg kicks. I really like Gaethje in this fight.
Man, here I was thinking we'd have a different take on a fight, but you kind of bring up all the points that I wanted to talk about, to be honest. I'm picking Gaethje. I'll say that right off the bat. And I think, and you were getting to this. I get the sense that Vick thinks he can stick and move his way to a win. And I feel like a lot of people, and I just don't think that he doesn't. Well, for one, Vick doesn't react particularly well when guys just kind of crash the distance on him super hard.
And that is Gaethje.
Yeah, that's Gaethje's game.
Gaethje. That's it. That's Gaethje.
He's when guys really just crash the distance, when they try to move inside Vick's range, he backs up, hands down, chin up, which is like a common kind of tall guy problem that a lot of tall fighters have because they can look down onto their opponents. I think Gaethje will be able to crash that distance. And really what you brought up that I like is that Alvarez and Poirier engaged. They were very, very smart and intelligent with how they engaged Gaethje, but they did kind of engage him in a forward, they met his pressure with their own strikes. They didn't try to stick and move the entire time. Eventually you're going to wilt. And we kind of saw that. We kind of saw that in Gaethje against Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson picked him apart and hurt Gaethje in the first round. In between rounds 1 and 2, Henry Hooft tells Michael Johnson, just keep doing that. Keep picking him apart. Use your jab. Use your angles. But just eventually, he just fucking wilted under Gaethje's relentless pressure.
Just like so many before him, too.
Exactly. So I think if Vick goes into it thinking, I can just stick and move and use my jab, I think eventually he's going to have a wake-up call and be like, holy shit, this guy is unreal. That said, though, maybe Gaethje is maybe the last two fights, and even the Michael Johnson fight, he got hurt. Maybe he is on a physical decline, and just the matchup of a tall fighter against a shorter fighter, I should say. Vick is going to have knees up the middle and uppercuts, and he throws a great uppercut to deal with Gaethje's pressure. But I think strategically speaking, I think eventually Gaethje will be able to, exactly what you said, take Vick into deep waters. But don't be surprised if Vick goes heavy to an uppercut, goes heavy on knees up the middle. But we haven't seen Vick against this type of fighter. Not that anybody can really emulate Justin Gaethje. But Gaethje's not going to give Vick the space that he does so well in because he's so big, so tall. He's kind of an underrated pocket boxer, but Gaethje's not going to give him any of that.
Two things. When you're constantly backing up, which Gaethje is going to do to him, you're not able to plant and sit on any punches, especially no punches that are going to really make Justin Gaethje worry. You basically have to hit that dude with a brick to get his attention. Two, if Gaethje's eating apart those legs, he's going to take away the mobility. On top of that, he's not going to be able to plant. And again, I think Gaethje's going to come out with that same kick-heavy game plan. And let's not forget, Gaethje was pretty damn close to finishing Dustin Poirier with those leg kicks. He had him hurt. Dustin Poirier was walking out of there hurt after that fight. He ended up finishing him, but again, he fought a dog. That was a dude that just bit down on his mouthpiece, Poirier's been in many of those fights, same with Eddie Alvarez, and just outwilled. I won't even say outwilled. He just stood longer than Justin Gaethje. I just don't see James Vick as that guy here. He's definitely going to get off early. I agree with you. He's going to be throwing uppercuts. He's going to be throwing knees. He's got a good clinch game. Gaethje tends to dip his head, but man, that pressure, those leg kicks, they're going to add up. I see Gaethje stopping Vick within 4. Probably like the 3rd round. I think he just eats up those legs and finishes them. Probably like 3rd round, maybe 4th.
Yeah, I think either way it's a dogfight. Even if Vick thinks he's going to stick and move, there's no way it's not kind of nonstop action for at least the first 10, 15 minutes. And Vick is kind of a slow starter. Like he's a guy that seems to get better as the fight goes on. So I think Gaethje will have a lot of success pretty early. If Vick can somehow like weather that storm and really find his groove, then maybe. But yeah, I feel like it's got to be like fighting in quicksand against Gaethje, And I think Vick is going to start off with knee deep in that quicksand because he's kind of a slow starter. That said, we haven't seen any indication that Vick has cardio problems or can't fight at a high pace. Man, I'm kind of all over with this one. I'm not super confident in it, but I am picking Gaethje. I think Gaethje gets a finish in like the 3rd round because I do think it'll be a fucking firefight.
I'm with you there, but again, you look at these two dudes, and the winner of this fight puts them honestly 2-3 fights still away from a title shot. That's how deep 55 is. The division is so stacked.
But yeah, it is because you got fucking Dan Hooker right there. Dan Hooker is only number 14 in the division. Yeah, exactly. Fucking Anthony Pettis is looking good again. Kevin Lee,
yeah, Dustin Poirier. Obviously Conor Khabib. You still got that guy Tony Ferguson hanging around, man. He's like the forgotten guy. Who knows? Nate Diaz, if he wins, just jumping back into that mix. I mean, that division's nuts right now.
Yeah, it's great. Always has been. Probably always will be.
Yeah, absolutely. The co-main event is like one of those random fights. I mean, it doesn't really mean anything for rankings, belts, anything like that. But it's a fun one. Michael Johnson taking on Andre Fili. This is a good fight for Johnson. I think Johnson struggles a lot with guy's got all the talent in the world, but he just can't I can't even say he can't beat the best guys because he's got a couple big wins. Got a win over Tony Ferguson and Dustin Poirier. But hit a rough patch in his last 3 fights. Got a win over Edson Barboza too. Damn. Clayson Tebow. He's made some studs in his career, man. Great boxing, great reach. Taking on Andre Fili, who was a guy that a lot of people were super high on. Team Alpha Male guy who's kind of I don't know. He just alternates wins and losses. He's finally got 2 wins in a row. He got that super questionable decision over Dennis Bermudez in his last fight. I don't really have too. I think I favor Johnson here, but again, this is kind of just a fun fight thrown in there.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I don't have a ton of strong opinions on it. I will say that I am pleased with what the development of Andre Fili in his past few fights. And that includes his 3 fights ago. He lost to Calvin Kattar, and I thought he started to show improvement then. He's kind of filled out. Like, he is fucking huge for 145. Really tall, really broad shoulders. I don't get the sense that Andre Fili is like a great athlete, if that makes any sense. Like, Michael Johnson comparatively has way better hand speed and probably better like one-punch power. But Fili is learning how to use his size well. He's not afraid to go for takedowns, and he's actually a pretty decent takedown artist when he does that. I just think these guys are trending different ways in their career. Kind of a red flag that I see for Michael Johnson in his last fight is he just really, in the 2nd round, after beating the piss out of Darren Elkins, which, everybody does that. Darren Elkins got on top of him in the 2nd round, and Michael Johnson just kind of fell apart. And maybe that was his first cut to 145. Maybe that had something to do with it. Maybe he'll be better adjusted to the weight cut now. But there's just so many red flags that I saw out of Michael Johnson in that Darren Elkins fight. You know, Andre Fili trains at the same camp, so they've game planned for Michael Johnson. I don't know. I think I'm picking Fili here. I think he's gonna get a decision. I think he might get tagged a little bit early, but he's a pretty physical guy. He might get some takedowns, believe it or not, on Michael Johnson. Use his length well. I like Fili here getting a decision, but it should be fun either way. Especially Andre Fili, not the best defensive fighter, and Michael Johnson is just a fucking scrapper all the way around. So,
yeah. See, I kind of favor. I think I favor Johnson here, but I mean, that's with very little confidence. I could see either of these guys winning. Moving down on the card, we have a women's strawweight fight between Courtney Casey and Angela Hill. It should be a fun one. Neither are, I mean, again, strawweight division's not too deep. I don't know. Are either of these females ranked top 15? Angela Hill might be.
Look.
Like borderline top 15.
Angela Hill is 14, and Courtney Casey is 11, and Hill was scheduled to face Alexa Grasso.
Oh, wow. Right. Courtney Casey's coming off a couple losses. Tough one to Felice Herrig. Actually, 2 split decision losses in a row. Michelle Waterson, Felice Herrig. So she's not fighting. She's fighting solid competition. Angela Hill as well. Angela Hill not too long ago had that barn burner with Nina Ansaroff. One of my favorite female fights of the last couple of years. Honestly, that fight was great. I don't know, another one. It should be a fun fight.
Yeah, I think Hill should get it done here just because she's way more technical. But who knows?
Yeah, she's just like her
Courtney Casey is really big for the weight class. She's very predictable on the feet, but if she can get on top, you know, Angela Hill has kind of some gaps in her game in terms of her ground defense. But I think it should be a fun scrap.
Yeah, absolutely. Jake Ellenberger taking on Brian Barberena. Is this Jake Ellenberger's retirement fight? Did he announce that, or am I making stuff up?
I don't know if he announced it or if everybody's just assuming, because he's from Nebraska, so it feels like they're just
he's
doing
from
this
Nebraska.
for him.
I mean, I'm trying to look to see. I don't see it, but yeah, this should definitely be.
Yeah, he's lost 3 in a row, all by TKO or KO. Before that, he was KO'd by Stephen Thompson, TKO'd by Robbie Lawler, TKO'd by Martin Campbell. Like he's not looking so good. And the knockout loss when Mike Perry elbowed Jake Ellenberger and it looked like he got fucking shot in the back of the head by a sniper. Dude. Yeah,
oh, man.
Hard to watch. He's not fighting like Brian Barberena is not necessarily like a knockout artist, but you got to pick Brian Barberena here.
And you know, Jake Ellenberger is one of those guys where like he was pretty damn close to a title shot at one point. He was consistently in like that top 5 area, and then man, when the wheels came off, it went downhill quick.
Yeah, he knocked out Jake Shields back in 2011 when that really meant something.
Yeah, that was Jake Shields coming off the GSP fight or somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. I think that's another tough one. Like, you know, he's obviously being in Nebraska. I'm sure he wants this win, like that storybook ending. I just hope, like, you gotta hope, like, guys like that, if it doesn't go their way, just like, you know, I know it's easier said than done, but man, I hope he just calls it quits, win or lose. You don't want to see him keep getting knocked out like that.
No, he's like I'm looking now. He's like plus 385, plus 400 underdog. So
think about that. That guy who has so many big wins in his career was on the cusp of a title shot as a plus 400 underdog to Brian Barberena. And that's no knock on Brian Barberena, but I mean, when you look in the context of it, Jesus, that is a fall from
Time
grace.
is undefeated, man.
Yeah, man. I know. What else? Were you the one that posted online that you were like sneakily looking forward to John Moraga and Davis and Figueredo?
I don't think I'm alone in looking forward to that.
You're
but
not, dude.
So, and this is actually a pretty pivotal flyweight fight, right? Like Figueredo is undefeated in the UFC at flyweight, or I think even in his career.
Undefeated in general. He's
Moraga
like
is number 6 right now, coming off a couple good wins. Yeah. So the thing is, and yeah, so what I posted is like, because I was rewatching some John Moraga fights, and in my head, he was always just kind of a scrappy, pretty physical guy with a good guillotine that got his ass kicked against Demetrius Johnson. But I think he's really like, maybe he's one of those guys that he fought Demetrius Johnson way back in 2013, and maybe that was just a fucking wake up call to him. Because he's actually like a really clean, technical, like all around fighter. He still has a great guillotine, but his striking,
a lot of power too.
He does pack he's still like a pretty good athlete. But he's really like turned into just a really smart, super technical fighter. Like his striking, I kind of love. It's not like flashy or anything, but I mean, he throws a great flying knee. But he's super comfortable in the pocket, throwing counters. He's comfortable leading. And if you leave your fucking neck out there on a takedown attempt, he will get it with the quickness. I really like late career John Moraga. And then the flip side of this fight is Davis Figueredo is like kind of a wild man. Like he's hyper aggressive, spinning stuff, will jump for submissions. This is actually a great fight on this card. Maybe.
Yeah,
exactly.
This is going to be a fun one.
Like I would almost prefer. I wish this was the co-main event. We'll call this the people's co-main event because there's no way it's better than Gaethje Vick, but it's a great fight.
No, but this and yeah, like you said, we're not the only ones that are hyped on this fight. I've been seeing a lot of hype for this fight, flying way under the radar. Obviously, for a lot of it's not going to get any mainstream attention, but damn, this is going to be a good fight.
Yeah, if for either guy, if Moraga wins, he moves on a 4-fight win streak, which is huge at 125. If Figueredo wins, he's also on a 4-fight UFC win streak.
Yeah, and guess what? Demetrius Johnson isn't the champion anymore. So for a guy like John Moraga, that's fresh blood for Henry Cejudo. We don't know what's going to happen with Demetrius Johnson and Henry Cejudo if they're going to rematch. Demetrius Johnson very well may win that belt back. But again, that DJ loss kind of brings fresh life to this division because he beat so many challengers, including John Moraga. Like you said, he smoked John Moraga. Opening up the main card, Eric Anders is taking on Tim Williams. Tim Williams doesn't have a Wikipedia page, but your boy Eric Anders, coming off that loss to Lyoto Machida, had a lot of momentum going into that one, and just kind of like, I don't know, just kind of shit the bed, honestly. I thought he fought too patient against the guy Machida who's always going to be dangerous, but is also like way in the twilight of his career. So we'll see how Anders bounces back from that.
I mean, in his defense, that was Eric Anders' his 11th pro fight, so it felt like just a little bit too much too soon. Tim Williams, I think I'm looking, is 0-1 in the UFC with a first round knockout on his record. But Tim Williams 15-4 overall. But he's I think he might be the biggest underdog on the card.
Makes sense.
Yeah, he's plus 660, plus 700 at some books.
Plus 700, damn.
You can see that in a lot of MMA fights that don't involve Ronda Rousey.
Yeah, right. James Krause is coming back. The James Krause quietly put together a 4-fight win streak for him. I've always been a fan of James Krause. I think he has a really slick style. He's a sneaky grappler. I like his striking. He's always exciting to watch, taking on Warley Alves. Mickey Gall's coming back. We'll see how he looks for the first time after losing to Randy Brown all the way back in November, almost a year away. Taking on George Sullivan, that's a solid matchup for him. George Sullivan has a lot more MMA fights, but he's also 37 years old. He's not a world beater. So we'll see how Gall responds there. Joanne Calderwood, Kalinja Faria, that's on the prelim card. I mean, there's a lot of good fights. nothing blockbuster really outside of the main event, but it should be a fun card. And usually cards like this deliver, honestly.
Yeah, I think it will. I mean, we've been talking about it. It's mostly action fights. I don't see any fights that I feel like are stinkers. Which I think, what is it? There's no 205 or heavyweight fights, so minimize the chance that you're just going to get two blubbery guys laying on each other.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so a couple things that are popped into my head. I know today, Yair Rodriguez officially pulled out. I believe it's official, right? He pulled out of his fight with Zabit.
Yeah.
Did you see why? Injury?
Let me see. I don't know. I know it's an injury, but I don't know if it's been reported what exactly the injury is.
That's a bummer. I was so looking forward to that fight. I guess they're searching for a replacement too for Zabit. I hope he can stay on the card. But that was a bummer, man. That was going to be a really, really good fight and a big step up for Zabit.
Yeah, it makes 228 now. Even with there's 2 title fights on it with Woodley and Till and Shevchenko Montano, but it's 228. If they losing that fight kind of hurts that card overall, because that was I feel like that was the one that everybody was talking about. Everybody was really looking forward to. It was kind of guaranteed to deliver.
Yeah, that's definitely a bummer. And good luck getting somebody on short notice for that guy.
I mean, nobody wanted to fight him. Fucking Yair Rodriguez got cut from the UFC because he didn't want to fight him, and now it's gonna be like fucking impossible to get anybody to fight him on 2 weeks' notice.
Yeah, that's a tough one, man. Big fight just got announced, official. Cris Cyborg fighting Amanda Nunes. You got it. You got to think the winner of that fight is the female GOAT. I have no problem calling the winner of that female GOAT. You know, Cyborg. I mean, she's just been a wrecking machine for so many years, and man, imagine if Amanda Nunes could hold a win over Ronda Rousey and Cris Cyborg. That would be insane. It's for Cyborg's 45-pound belt, right?
Yeah, it's happening at 45.
That's an interesting one. I believe that's the year-end card. I'm assuming that's going to be the main event. It deserves to be the main event. And this is the first female champion versus champion fight in the UFC. Definitely a big one.
I'm looking forward to it big time. And I feel like a lot of people are Cris Cyborg fans. We're Cris Cyborg fans. I feel like I'm one of the few remaining Amanda Nunes fans. So I don't know exactly where my allegiances will fall in this fight, but great one. I mean, there's not a lot of great fights out there for Cyborg, especially because the fucking UFC fed Megan Anderson to Holly Holm in her promotional debut. But at least, you know, Cyborg has been fighting a lot of 135ers. At least now she's going to fight the best 135er in the world.
Yeah, I agree, man. I'm definitely pumped for that one, as we all should be. Anything else?
I was just going to say, I think this, like, Cyborg, we're nearing the end of her career. She's been pretty adamant that she doesn't want to fight forever. So I'm glad that they're finally getting a fight like this done for her.
You know, she also doesn't want to fight forever. And she wants to fight more frequently. She's mentioned Bellator a lot. You know what, Ben? I would not be surprised if especially if they don't treat her right down these last couple fights. I would not be surprised if she jumped ship over to Bellator to end her career.
They actually have a division, yeah. And she's made comments in the past. It's like, if the UFC will not give me 145-pound women to fight, I'll go somewhere else and fight them. Which is honestly, like, that kind of attitude is partly why I'm such a big Cyborg fan. Is she's just so honest, and like she has some fuck ups on Twitter now and then, because I think her boyfriend runs her Twitter account, but
yeah, she definitely doesn't run her Twitter account. That's sure.
But in like an interview, she says all the right things, man. I know people hate on her for her past, and that's understandable with, you know, PEDs and whatnot. I get that, but right now, I love watching her fight. I feel like she says all the right things. She seeks out the biggest, best fights she can find and fucking dominates.
Yeah, I agree, man. Hey, before we go, let me shoot this question to you. What do you think are the chances that Gustafsson versus Jones headlines UFC 230?
I think slim. But I saw this idea kind of floating around, because as far as we know, right, Diaz and Poirier is officially the co-main event, right? And they have not announced the main event for UFC 230.
They have not. And like we talked about on last show, to top that co-main event, you have to put something big in that main event slot.
Man.
There's some fishy stuff going on with Jones, dude. Like, we have no clarification on what the hell is going to happen with him. We've seen fighters before. Brock Lesnar got that pass a couple years ago against Mark Hunt. Man, I would not be surprised if we get Jon Jones in that UFC 230 main event. And I've been hearing Gustafsson.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that. And if you look at Jones's social media and like Brandon Gibson's social media, we've been seeing a lot of Jon Jones training hard pics and posts about Jones training. And we don't know. USADA has not come down with anything, but he hasn't fought in over a year. So, nothing is to stop USADA from just saying he served his suspension. Now you can fight, at any moment. And from what I hear, the rumor is that this whole time it's been Jones's agent or lawyer, or whatever, trying to negotiate some sort of settlement with USADA. So, man, UFC 230 is in a bit of a bind, and yeah, they're running out of options in terms of big fights to put above Diaz Poirier. So, yeah.
And just for the record, I know people are clamoring about this. I was one of them until I found this out. Anderson Silva's suspension is over 6 days after UFC 230, so we will not be seeing GSP versus Anderson on that card. I would have loved it. I mean, man, like we talked about, I would love to see GSP Anderson anytime, anywhere, but definitely not happening on that card. I don't know, man. I would be surprised, and I wouldn't be surprised if we got a Jon Jones announcement at some point. We still have plenty of time, too, so they don't have to rush it either. Jon Jones kind of sells himself.
Yeah, he's not like I feel like you want to give a guy like Conor McGregor a lot of time on the mic, but Jon Jones is good on the mic, but it's people just want to see him fight, and they know he's a wild man. Yeah, maybe they'll announce it soon. It does feel like Madison Square Garden. It's got to be a bigger fight than Nate Diaz, Dustin Poirier. Not a ton of options outside of Jon Jones.
Yeah, I agree. So definitely keep an eye on that. I'd love to see him back. The as much as you want to hate on Jon Jones, MMA is better with him in it. 100%.
Absolutely agree. I'm a Jon Jones mark. I'll stick by that all the time.
Yeah, me too, man. We got anything else? Did we miss anything?
I think that's all the big news. A quick one today.
Yeah. And again, if you're ever wondering what is going on, what to watch if there's no UFC, CombatDocket.com, sync the calendar to your phone. You're going to get notifications. You'll be able to see everything that's going on. Yeah. It's well worth it. You're going to see everything. So sync that up. Until next week, enjoy the fights this weekend. We'll talk to you all soon.